Hello and welcome to the cafe. So today we're going to be using some Canson watercolor paper, cold pressed, heavyweight, 140 pound. This pack is 9 by 12, but I've cut my sheets down to 5 by 7. We're also going to be using my Staedtler double-ended watercolor brushes. I love these. They have a brush pen tip, which is the one we'll be using today. And then they also have a smaller, more detailed tip on these. These, of course, being watercolor brush pens, are water activated, and they just bring the magic. I love this pen set. I get it at Michael's. So I've chosen these 4 colors today, and this is the only thing I don't like about this watercolor set, this brush pen set. They do not name the colors. There's no names, so you just kind of have to go with the colors. I've got a warm brown here, an orangey kind of brown, which I thought was appropriate for the autumn weather we're having, a lighter orange color, and a really warm yellow. So like I said, I've got these cut down to 5 by 7. I've got a large flat and a large round. It really doesn't matter what you have as long as you use what you have. So any paint brushes, larger for this project is better for the background. I've got an old paint rag here, and then I've got my nice little trusty, well-loved, well-used container of water. So like I was saying, when I first started YouTube, I'm just going to go ahead and start doing this, and I don't need the detail end of the brush right now. You're just going to fill in some color here and there on these. But when I started YouTube, oh my gosh, I thought I had to have every art supply, every stencil, every little material and tool that all the artists on here were using. And over the years, I have found that, it's far more important to me today, and this is just for myself, but to get really intimate with the supplies I have. I will say the watercolor brush pens are a beloved favorite art supply of mine. So, sometimes you do have to go out and buy something or a few somethings, but getting intimate with the things that you have, I think, is so not talked about enough and incredibly important. You can do so much with so little as an artist. It's really about stretching your imagination. And I have found sometimes if I have too many things at my disposal, that I get locked down with my imagination. I just, what is that old saying? Like if you try to shoot 2 rabbits at the same time, you hit neither, or some gross saying like that. I really don't like violence like that. But if you've got too many directions you can go, it can really work against me personally. As artists, we have a lot of challenges sometimes and things that we need to be mindful of, and one of mine is I'm driven to uniformity. I've talked about this many times here on the channel, and I was a faux finishing artist, so things had to be random but uniform at the same time, and I did that for a long time, long enough to really get locked into that aesthetic. And now as a canvas artist and a watercolor artist, I struggle sometimes to not be so uniform. But as you can see, I do kind of fall into patterns. So now all I want to do is get these really wet and activate this color. And this is just your initial background here. And these are so amazing to play with. Like I was talking about getting intimate with your art supplies. really taking the time to get to know the supplies you have, like a set of watercolor brushes, can take you so far. And here's some things I do love about this art supply in particular. These brushes can be taken out and put away very quickly and easily. They're not a huge, messy undertaking like, say, acrylic painting is. This can be really fast setup and fast tear down for you. You can lay in bed and do a bunch of backgrounds while you're getting ready to go to sleep. You can sit and watch one of your favorite shows if you like to do that, and do this part of it to make the backgrounds. So it takes some water, and I will say this, you will get brush marks that will not go away on less expensive paper. I have used cheap watercolor paper and I'm really unhappy with it, and I ended up buying a bunch of it, and I ended up just setting it aside to do acrylic paint projects with it because it's just too lousy for watercolor, sadly. So I do like the Canson paper. I think it's pretty good paper. It's at least within reach of most people financially. Of course, you know, if you want the really, really nice watercolor paper, you will pay for it. You do have to pay a lot of money for really good watercolor paper, and I just don't think it's necessary, especially when you're exploring and learning and experimenting with your supplies. So I've got a little bit of that brush that I was talking about, and sometimes it requires coming in and kind of grinding that out a little bit and getting a bit heavy-handed with your art. You don't want to overwork watercolor. That is, and it's hard not to. It's difficult for me not to. Here's another thing I tend to do. I tend to cover everything and don't leave any white spots. And I've really wanting to work on that in the future. So I'm going to add even more water to these areas that have these lines, but this is also just a background, so if a little bit of that is going on, it's okay. But look at the magic that is happening on this side over here. I'm going to quickly grab my spatter brush. I'll be right back. Okay, I've got it. This thing is so scratchy, and it's just a nice big fan brush, and it's one of my favorites. I use it all the time here. So this is already starting to set up and dry. This one clearly is more wet, and I am getting some cauliflowering, and I love that in my artwork. I am not somebody who's interested, at least not now, in doing gradients that are very smooth and very clean. I like variation. I like messy. I like splotchy, I like all of that kind of grungy stuff happening in my watercolor. So I'm going to grab some water here, and this one is still wet, but it's far drier than this one, and I just want to get some water spatters on here. And you can already see it reacting. Watercolor, of course, if you have any experience at all, you know that you can get so many different effects depending on how wet, how dry, all of that good stuff. So this one is too wet right here. It's really not going to have an effect. It's just going to thin out the pigment, but it's pretty dry up here in this corner. So I'm going to go ahead and hit this and down here a little bit too. Now the parts that are extra dry, they are taking even longer to have an effect. So it's really fun to play around and just see what you can get. So I'm going to go ahead and let these dry, and then we're going to do some fun, whimsical, botanical mark making on these. Okay, so these are still a bit wet, and what I would like to do with them quickly is just dab. Now, when you spatter on an area that's drier and you come in to dab, look, you can get really bold and vibrant drops. Also at different phases, you can get bold and vibrant drops that have not as bold as this, but they have the rings of color around them. So at different phases of drying, you can really get a lot of different looks with your spatter, which I find very fun to play around with. I don't get attached at this point. This is just the first layer. Now what I'd like to do with this is I've grabbed a few colors here and I've got them wet and activating, and these are from my Prima complexion set, and these are the colors. This is my little swatch that I made for this set, and I have pulled the colors Unite, Coconut, and Gold to spatter on these pieces here, and these little sets are so fun. I love them. They're great little travel sets. You can get them online. I got all mine at Hobby Lobby, but they have since quit carrying them. So the next layer, I just want to do some flowers, and I'm going to use a water brush for this, and I'm using my black watercolor brush pen. So I'm going to spin this around. Just going to add a few flowers in here. I was just feeling like black. So I do this technique a lot over just white plain watercolor paper. I haven't done it too much on background painted paper that's already got a background. So let's give it a shot. These are straight on flowers. Then here's a little bud. I like to do this three-pronged one too. Let's put one here. Got one. Kind of want them next to each other, but really not touching. And then I touch them. Oh well, it's okay. Let's do another bud. And let's do a side view. You just go a little bit smaller and a little bit narrower for the side view. Okay. All right, let's see how these come out. Okay, let that sit. Here's a nice chocolate. This one's really dark. I think it's gonna work just fine. Let's do the dark and the black. Okay. I really don't like using the detail, and maybe for some steaming or something, but to get the paint to move, I really do like to use the brush, because the tighter pens, sometimes the lines stay in your work, so that's really important to know. I like doing it this way. I think it's fun. You could also use just watercolor. Let's also use the black to do some mark making on the other one. Okay, let's do, I want to come off the page, come onto the page, I mean. And then let's do that again down here. I like that look. Yes, I love it. Okay, I like it. They're very cohesive, and it's kind of minimalistic mark making so far, so I'll let these dry completely and we'll come back and finish them. Okay, so far so fun with these. They are dry now. They dry really fast, which I love. Check this out. I really like how these look in a matte. And we'll look at them again when they're all completely finished, but what a pop of contrast with that beautiful white matte. So now on this, I've got black, brown, and this orange colored pen, and then I've got my white Signo gel pen. So I'm going to start with the black, and I'm just going to put in some dots in the head facing flowers. The side view one needs some. And I'm also going to do some other cool stuff with this. This is fun when you get to bring in this pen work. You can get quite whimsical if you want, and you can also be quite minimal. Whichever you decide. So the thickness of this has to be, the stem has to be an equivalent to the thickness of that to make it believable. Otherwise it's going to be like, how is that? It'll bother you without you knowing why. You know what I'm saying? Okay. Here's a fun little vine to do. Okay, I like to throw a little wild notions coming out of these too. I think it adds to the piece. All right, let's add a few black stamens. Those show up better. And I like them with the more faded orange. It's beautiful. I think it's probably a better choice than white. I don't know though. Maybe do some white too. Okay. So pretty. I love the color combo. I really like the choice to do the black. Got a fly hanging out over here today. Okay, let me bring you in. So here's the detail on this one. So lovely with that gold spatter. Just some simple little artwork, and I'll put it in, I'll back you back out a bit and put the frame around it so you can see that. I hope you give these a shot. You can go so many directions with this kind of artwork right here. It's really incredible. Look at that. Oh, I love it. I think it's beautiful. I want to see it with the shimmer showing. Look at that. Wow. Okay, these are fun. I've got a lot of these watercolor backgrounds, and I'd like to do some work on them. I pulled this green because I think I'm going to work with these next. But let me show you some more of these. there is, I just did a bunch of these and then I put them away and forgot about them. This one's really cool. I'd like to do a series of maybe like a 4-pack or a 6-pack series of these colors. And I actually really like the blocking out too. I think that's pretty awesome. There's that fun little one. And I've got some blue. I'll just flip through these real quick. I think they're really beautiful. I'm very excited to work with these ones. I'm gonna set them aside. I feel inspiration looking at those two. These are more blue. This one kind of goes with these. I'm gonna put it aside with that. Ah, these are fun. There's some cool stuff here. Some blue, green, and green. That one's pretty splotchy. That could be like some green flowers in there. I don't know. There's a lot to work with here. This one's got washi tape for the border on it. I like these colors. This one's fun. I have a couple. They're similar. They're not the same, but they're close. Those are nice. These are really cool. These were all made with the brushes. I'm pretty sure these were made with the brushes. This is the look I get from the brush pens, so they're an amazing tool. And then here I did these with black ink, some kind of water activated. I couldn't even tell you I did them with a pen. And I love water activated pens. You know, some people are like, oh, it's not waterproof, oh, it bled. Oh, I want it to bleed. I think it's cool. Here's a little cityscape with, you know, I don't like this part. I wish I wouldn't have done that. It reminds me of like somebody else's art. Here's the watermark. But oh well, is what it is. Here's these. So there's some fun stuff to play around with here. And I am really glad you stopped by today to check this out. And here's these one more time. Let's do this. Back you up. Oh yeah, and that is like, I could stand to do a couple bigger pieces of paper next time and give myself a tiny bit more room to work with, because these are very tight, but lovely. I dig them, and I like just the very simple mark making on the edges. There we go, that's pretty close. Pretty cool, guys. Well, thanks again, and I'll see you real soon.